All right, let's talk about the Abzan Houses. The Mughals are sort of a pastiche of influences from like the Ottoman Empire to the Mughals. The Mughals, to use a broad, sweeping generalization, were an empire that ruled South Asia, or most of South Asia, more or less from 200 years from the 16th century to the 18th century. And a big reason I use them as a reference point is because they're one of the cultures most likely to use the term Khan, as they were founded by a descendant of Genghis Khan, and the word Mughal is actually like the Persian version of Mongol. So anyway, the Abzan houses. The Abzan were divided into noble houses. Bloodline was very important to them because spirit magic was very, like ancestor magic and worship was very fundamental to their culture. They were primarily made up of humans, Avon, and Anak dogfolk. And they took as their symbol a dragon scale, which they took from the dragons they defeated and would put in their armor. They were also well known for these rhino-like creatures called Krushak. And central to their culture were kin trees, which are basically the hubs of spirit magic and where their ancestor spirits reside. And their ancestors could be called upon in battle, and they would create this sort of sand spirit. And they typically lived in walled cities among the more arid regions of Tarkir. Their leader, Dagatar the Adamant, bent the knee to Jermoka. In order to save his people, he shattered the mace that was had the most ancient Jeskai spirits that would help guide the Khan, because Jermoka's deal for the Abzan was that they had to give up their necromancy, which they didn't even consider their ancestor worship necromancy. This all happened some time before Khanfall, and it was actually Rayhan who declared herself Khan after Dagatar had given up. And she fell in the battle at Khanfall, while the rest of the Abzan ended up following Jermoka. What ended up happening is Jermoka broke all the bloodline lineages and had everyone be raised communally, where they don't even necessarily know what family they're from. And so they would take their house names from their city or from the dragon group they belonged to. Anafenza, who had been Khan in the Khans of Tarkir timeline, which does not exist, is killed after discovering a kin tree that Jermoka had missed. And so she sort of becomes the foundation of the Abzan rebellion from Jermoka. In terms of dragon lords to fall under, Jermoka wasn't that bad, but the erasure of cultural identity and of family and blood ties did not sit well with people. Note, the Abzan are big traders. They tend to be very heavily armored. They view being slow and steady as being more important than fast, and they tend to overwhelm with numbers. I forgot to mention they also have Luxodon. After overthrowing Jermoka, they introduce some more color to their outfits for one. They have these sort of enchanted breastplates that glow, and they've started using cuttings of the last kin tree and maybe some other kin trees that they found hidden to rebuild. Jermoka destroyed a lot of family ties, but when you have ancestor spirits to ask about things, they're able to piece things together. So the current houses are sort of partly people who could figure out blood tie relations and partly just building on whatever social makeup the houses had during Jermoka. Jermoka Brood hasn't been kicked out. Like all the clans, the Broods were a bit more or less not welcome to stay, but anyone who was fine with the new Abzan, they were fine with. Their new spirit dragon is Baitor, Ancestor's Voice. They're led by a new character, Felothar, who is the current Khan.